The poor people, the third-class people who were heading on the ship, which was the majority of the ship, they were on there to get a better life in America. There was promise, there was hope, there was prosperity. And so how cruel that they disproportionately suffered the losses on the Titanic. Yes, it was women and children first, but in actual fact, more first-class men survived than third-class women and children combined. Men wrapped scarves around their head so that they could get into the lifeboats ahead of those people who were trapped below deck. Because of the design flaw with the chambers, many third-class people were locked in. Many third-class people hadn't been to the surface. They didn't even know where the lifeboats were. Some people in New Zealand's economy know how to navigate through icebergs. They know how to get to the other side. Others of us don't, and it falls disproportionately. First class, second class, third class survival rates. And so there's another kind of analogy here, and that's while this was happening, while this injustice or this unfairness was happening, the band played on. Right? Everyone knows that. Something we think about the Titanic quite regularly. The band played on. So you could say that while this is happening and it's falling disproportionately as we navigate through the icebergs, the cheerleaders and the Treasury and the Reserve Bank and some of the business community, especially the speculative community, they play on. Everything is fine, but it's not fine. Take, for example, the housing market. Here is home ownership rates, and the reality is that Adana and I will never be able to afford a home, certainly not in Auckland or Wellington, and maybe some other centres around New Zealand. Increasingly, properties are concentrated in the hands of few. This has also matched the state's retrenchment in terms of housing policy and taking a hands-off approach in terms of regulating that market and making sure that it delivers for people. And we've got another crisis in housing that's emerging, and that's when the baby boomers go, and unfortunately they will, where is all their property going to go? They're the biggest generation we had in a long time, so there are more of them than their children. So where is the property going to go? Well, it's going to go into fewer and fewer children's hands. And so, houses increase in value, the rents that people seek to get from them will increase as well, increasing oligopoly of this resource, and so we will never own a house in Gisborne or Takaka. These places too, we won't be able to own a house. And so some solutions around this is the state getting involved again. We can't rely on the market in this circumstance. It's just not working. We've got to look at the state building houses again, making sure that banks aren't ripping people off, that people have access to credit, to make sure that they can get into homes and they can be secure as we travel through the icebergs. So it begs the question, is it time for a new social contract? And I don't mean the man on the roof kind of stuff. I mean, is it time to redesign and think again about what people's responsibilities are and the kind of culture we want to create? Take, for example, the Irish model, right? Not particularly nice economic outcomes now, but the process they went through in terms of reform is a model that I think is quite admirable. They got labour and church groups and business around the table and they said, okay, so what are the trade-offs for the next 5 years? Where are the industries that we're really going to concentrate on developing? How can we sell that to the world? How can we make sure that that translates into real wage growth? If we're going to disestablish this mine on the west coast, how do we make sure that your people, or your children at least, become the next high-tech physicists? And this is a graph from 1989 to 2010 of productivity growth and real wage growth, and there's a huge disparity there. Those people in steerage were promised in their journey to New York, in their journey to prosperity, that they would be rewarded. But instead, our chambers have kept them below deck. And so there are solutions for that. We can look at Australia's model, we can look around the world, different industrial relations models for sharing wealth and making sure that people are rewarded because they work harder. It's not necessarily about redistribution, we can look at pre-distribution. We can look at people, a group of workers committing to becoming more productive, maybe computerizing their industry, and that's going to result in some job losses, yes, but if it becomes more efficient, then they should be entitled to a share of that new productivity, that new wealth. Otherwise, we're going to have people, young people especially, leaving on planes to the Gold Coast and featuring on the GC more and more because that's where they get a better deal. We've got to be aware of that because we are bleeding our talent dry. And so, some other solutions for making sure that people can retrain and invest. If we are in the era of icebergs, if there are threats out there, making sure that people have the skills and the ability to survive, that they can come up for air, that there are lifeboats, that they will be safe and secure in a dynamic global economy. And so we can do that by doing what we've done in superannuation perhaps, and having a Kiwi skills scheme where employers, especially in industries which are winding down, invest in a fund with government and workers to make sure that they have the money there to retrain when that job is no longer viable. We can't achieve the kind of high skill, high wage economy without making sure we invest in our people. That's the most important thing, and we can organise our society so that we can do that, so that people can get the skills to retrain for the latest computer program. Maybe they're at the same work, maybe they haven't even lost their job, but they just need to update and become increasingly competitive. Well, we can do that. We can fund that. We can make sure that people are secure in a dynamic, changing economy. Because it's only if we have a new design and more lifeboats that people will get on the ship again. Third class, working class people in Europe after the Titanic sank, the numbers of them who went on transatlantic crossings halved overnight, immediately. People didn't feel safe, they didn't feel secure. We've got to make sure that people have the ability to make the crossing safely, that they have dignity, that they have opportunity, that they have fairness. And so, in changing this culture and making a compromise between security and the dynamism of an economy, we can promote a new culture, one that perhaps we had at a time, a slice of heaven where people pay their fair share and get opportunities and rewards. We can create a culture where people are proud to pay their taxes and proud to contribute to society. A recent study showed that 60% of beneficiary fraudsters